Tonight, the graphic dash cam footage from a Minnesota traffic stop where a police officer fatally shot Philando Castile.
So last week, many people became outraged when a jury acquitted that officer. Taryn Asher joins us now with our first look at the moments that led up to that deadly shooting. And Taryn, it is certainly very difficult to watch this video.
It really is. And, you know, up until now, all we've seen is that controversial Facebook Live video. Philando Castile's girlfriend recorded moments after the shooting. Tonight is our first look at the exchange between the officer and the motorist. This is what the jury saw before they reached their controversial verdict.
And it's just unfortunate that I put myself and my daughter's life in jeopardy to record something so traumatic only for a verdict to be told it was not guilty.
It was a first, a Facebook Live of the tail end of a Minnesota police officer fatally shooting motorist Philando Castile. A video that went viral last July, horrifying people around the world. But last Friday, a jury found the officer not guilty of manslaughter. Now we are getting a look at the dash cam, what led to the controversial verdict.
The reason I pulled you over, your brake lights are out. So you only have one active brake light, and that's going to be your passenger side one.
It appeared to be a routine traffic stop. Officer Geronimo Yanez, who had been searching for a robbery suspect, pulls over Castile for a broken taillight. But it quickly turns into chaos when Castile tells the officer he has a firearm.
Sir, I have to tell you, I do have a firearm on me. Don't reach for it, then. Don't pull it out. Don't pull it out.
Officer Yanez fires 7 shots. 2 bullets pierced Castile's heart. Diamond Reynolds, who was in the passenger seat, recording his final moments.
Oh my God, please don't tell me he's dead.
The squad car camera also captures the moment his girlfriend's 4-year-old child gets out of the back seat. Audio also picks up a frazzled Yanez telling his supervisor what happened.
Which direction did you fire your weapon?
Right at the driver. I had it right out.
Okay.
I had it pointed down. I don't know how many rounds I let out.
In a later interview, Officer Yanez describes he saw Castile appear to make a C shape with his hand as if he was reaching for a gun. That's the moment he decided to shoot.
And I thought he had it enough to where all he had to do was just pull it out, point it at me, move his trigger finger down the trigger, and let off rounds. And I had no other option than to take out my firearm, and I shot.
And right now, we want to bring in a couple of experts to talk about this troubling footage. Mark Zacks is the state secretary for the Police Officers Association of Michigan, and Rick Ector is the CPL instructor and the owner and operator of Rick's Firearms Academy in Livonia. Now, the jury acquitted Officer Yanez, we know that last Friday, not guilty of manslaughter. Mark, let's start with you. What do you think? Did the jury get it right?
From what you can see in the video, it appears that they did.
And Rick, when a lot of people were upset, they were outraged from this because they feel it's very difficult to convict a police officer. What do you think about what the jury found?
I believe that based on the information that we see, it's really not really easy to determine who was at fault. I think there's some real key common sense things that some people can do who are CPL holders who find themselves in that situation.
Well, right now, though, let's take a closer look at those moments so you can concentrate on those. This is what happened right before the shooting, and as we're about to see, it escalated quickly.
I do have a firearm on me. Don't reach for it, then. Don't pull it out. Don't pull it out. Don't pull it out.
All right, it's very tough to watch. Castile was shot seven times. The officer fired his weapon, and the officer, at that point, we know he was searching for a robbery suspect. And if you remember, this traffic stop happened during a time where there were several police shootings, people shooting at police. Do you think that that played a role and that the officer may have feared for his life at this time?
Well, it's obviously he feared for his life at the time of the shooting, but whether the environment that happened previously had anything to do with it, I can't comment on that. Each traffic stop is different. It's just like anything else. It's the most dangerous thing an officer does is a traffic stop.
But did he react too quickly?
It's hard to say. He gave the individual 3 separate times. He said, don't reach for it, don't reach for it, don't reach for it, and he continued to reach for it. At that point, I think the officer was in fear for his life, and reacted in a manner as the jury saw was appropriate.
Well, Rick, though, we did hear him say that he did have a firearm. He did warn him.
He did have a firearm, and he did actually, probably according to law, did what he was supposed to do and said, hey, I have a firearm. I have a firearm. And the officer said, don't reach for it, don't reach for it. So I think some common sense things that some people can do is that if they're carrying a firearm and if they're being stopped, make sure that they get all that information, the firearm, all your documentation, get it together, put it off to the side, put your hands clearly on the wheel, keep them there, and turn on any dome lights if it's dark. You don't want to do anything to put that officer at ease, and I think some very common sense things that can really make these encounters safer.
In your opinion, though, was this self-defense for the officer?
I really don't see enough to do that. And on the one hand, it's kind of like, well, gee, why would he go through all the rigmarole of making the disclosures if he's going to ambush the police officer? Hey, I feel that it's a really tragic circumstance that just happened.
And you really do have a split second to make that decision, Mark.
And that's the thing, it is a split-second decision. And I have to agree with Rick. What we watch, any police officer watches, is an individual's hands. That's what's going to hurt you. It's not their mouth, it's not what they're saying, it's the hands. And if the hands aren't doing what you're asking them to do, that's what's going to hurt an officer.
Now, at one point during the video, the officer describes to a superior what happened in his words. Take a listen.
Told me he has a firearm. I told him not to reach for it. And when he went down to grab, I told him not to reach for it. And then he kept it right there, and I told him to take his hands off of it. And then he had his grip a lot wider than a wallet. And I don't know where the gun was. He didn't tell me where the f***ing gun was.
And let's get back to this again. The officer never says he actually saw a gun. We said it was making his hand bigger than a wallet. Later interview, he said it's the shape as a C, as if he was grabbing a weapon. Should he have waited, though, before he saw a weapon, before he shot?
I don't know the answer to that point, Sharon. I wasn't at the scene. If he saw the weapon, I don't know what he actually saw, but...
What would you have done?
You're putting me in a situation I can't answer that. I can only say I have to agree with Rick at the point is if you are pulled over, the first words out of your mouth is you should identify that you are a CPL holder or you do have a weapon. Keep your hands in view so an officer can clearly see that and let them know that you are carrying a weapon. Don't reach for anything. Certainly don't reach for the gun, as it sounds like what was happening at this point in time. And, let the officer know, and then continue on with the traffic stop.
And Rick, you've been pulled over. You are a CPL holder, just like...
I've been through the drill many times over the years. And the thing is that you really want to get all that information staged. Your documentation, your driver's license, proof of insurance, your CPL. Get that information together before the officer even gets there. And keep your hands on the wheel at 10 and 2 and wait further instructions. And certainly don't be searching around for anything until directed to, and both officers who's present are all on the same page with what's going to happen next.
And certainly some good advice, and we thank you both for being here. The jury may have acquitted the officer, but he did lose his job with his police force, and hopefully at the very least we can learn from what happened that day. Root, back to you.